So I've been building in Minecraft for just about 5 years now, and over time I learned a lot of tricks and techniques that helped me get here. I think it could be very useful to share these tricks with you guys, and maybe that way you won't have to spend a full 5 years learning these techniques. Starting simple, I want to talk about shape. I'll be honest, I still struggle coming up with new and interesting shapes for my builds, but from all the time I've been building, I found that looking at pictures of Minecraft builds, concept art, and all that kind of stuff is honestly one of the best ways to create interesting shapes for your build. For the very basics of it though, the best way I found for this is laying down a 2D almost blueprint of the build, and from there bringing up a skeleton structure of the build, or at least that's just what I call it. I found that this helps me avoid getting overwhelmed, and it helps my brain understand what I'm trying to create. Another way you can also do this is create some shapes you want to include into a single build, and once you have all your separate shapes, you can copy and paste them into one build. It can really help to do this so again you don't get too overwhelmed. In general though, a couple things I've learned is that diagonal builds can be hard. If you want to build on a diagonal, which I definitely encourage you to do, be ready to spend twice as long making the same build on a small angle. Honestly, it took me a long time to get good at building diagonals, and I'm still not great, but when you do, they can actually look really good. So I would recommend to build an outline again and just fill in the blank. It's a really good thing to know how to build on a diagonal, and once you can build them easily, they can improve your builds by a lot. Also, building on an odd number is always better than even numbers. That way your roof can end on a 1 block peak, but that's just a small trick in there. Anyway, another thing I realized is that, well, it might be obvious, but practicing consistently can help a lot. If you want to get better at anything related to building, then focus on that specific thing, like let's say maybe shape, and then every time you get the chance, try to practice building with a new shape, for example. Over time, you're gonna find what works and what doesn't, and that's gonna help you get better at whatever you're practicing. I know it sounds really obvious, but honestly, practice really does make perfect. So whatever it is, building houses, custom trees, terraforming, by practicing those things a lot, you're definitely going to get better at them over time. For example, I used to struggle a lot using different blocks and colors in my builds, so I practiced building with different colors over a couple of months, and now I can build pretty much using any kind of block. Moving on though, something I learned more recently is that using trees, leaves, moss, and more blocks like that around your builds is a great way to make them feel like they belong there. All these blocks and well custom trees make your builds feel like they're a part of the environment, instead of it just being a house in the middle of nowhere. I found that builds can expand outside as well. You can build a small cart, storage, seating areas, all the kind of stuff that people living in that house would use or need, but by adding these smaller details, you can add a lot of life into a build, because now the build actually has a story behind it, and you can almost imagine people living there. Another great way to give life to your builds is, well, to build interiors. I know building interiors can take up a lot of time, at least for me, but just seeing a living space through the windows of a house can give a build more life, because again, it looks like it's lived in. Since I started building, I noticed that my favorite builds were, well, always the ones with a story behind it, interiors and all that good stuff. So if I can give you one trick that can make your builds 100 times better, that would be to try and tell a story with them. It doesn't have to be too complicated, but just give the build a little more personality. It took me like a good 3 years to figure this out, so there you go, I just saved you 3 years of your life. Anyway, a big part of building is choosing the blocks to use. Until this year, actually, my block palettes look a little something like this, and now they look more like this. I know it's a lot of blocks, but there's a good reason why. Only recently did I start looking at Minecraft building as an art form. Minecraft can sometimes feel very flat, and that's because there's no shadows or highlights in the base game. But if we use certain blocks properly, we can almost create our own custom shadows. I also started using a lot more gradients in my builds to show, for example, moss building up on the side of a building, or where a build is more weathered. In my opinion, when I started using more blocks in my builds, whether it's for shadows, moss, or whatever, I realized that my builds felt a lot more detailed. This feels like it's more art compared to this, which feels kind of like a generic Minecraft build. I could go in depth on how to choose blocks for when you're building with gradient, but I have a full video on gradients, so go check that out after this one if you want to learn how to make better gradient. Anyway, I'm still getting used to building like this, but some of my favorite builds I made more recently use this technique a lot. Now, building in Minecraft takes a lot of creativity. Sometimes it's hard to come up with an idea for a build. However, something I discovered over the last 5 years is a website called Pinterest. Pinterest is a website that can basically give you a ton of inspiration. It works for whatever it is you're trying to build. For example, I have a bunch of tree designs saved, while I also have a bunch of house designs, and I can even find terraforming inspiration in no time. I know I talk about it a lot, but I really like Pinterest because it's great at giving you exactly what you want. If I ever feel like I don't know what to build, I just scroll for a bit on Pinterest, and I can usually find something interesting to build pretty quick. Another thing I found that helped me is to watch other Minecraft builders on YouTube. As a content creator, your job is kind of to be creative, so if you watch YouTubers that build cool stuff, it's usually going to be something different and interesting, because that's kind of their job, and you can use that inspiration to build something yourself. For those of you who want to know, I personally like to watch Bdubs, Fwip, Green, Scar, Germsy Boy, and honestly way too much more, but these people all have have different styles of building, so it helps me find a different way to build. I always watch the same couple of builders when I started playing Minecraft, and now my build style is kind of a mix of, well, all their styles. It's still my own build style, but it came from all those builders I used to watch a lot. If you want to get better at building and learn a bunch of new techniques for building, first of all, subscribe to this channel, but also I recommend studying how other people build. You can probably tell I do this with my how to build like whatever builder it might be series, but as much as it might be helpful for you to learn how to build like someone else, it is at the same time just as much helping me to get better at building. I find that every time I study someone else's build style, I almost always learn something new about building in this game. So I would recommend trying to learn from other builders because it's really helpful. The main reason I started building using more colors in my builds, for example, is because of Bdubs. Something else that changed the way I build now is having a super flat test world, just to try out different things. I like building in creative Minecraft, however, personally survival is the game mode I prefer. Because of that, when I started building, I found that I was kind of stuck in the same style, and that's because I was limited to the blocks I had in my inventory. But if you make a creative super flat world, you can have access to every block in the game, and you can build whatever you want where you want. When I started building, I was kind of scared of using other blocks than cobblestone, oak wood, and spruce, but over time I forced myself to use different blocks in my build by practicing building with them in a creative world first. Honestly, doing this helped me a ton. In survival, if you build a house and you don't like it in the end, it can take a while to tear it down, but in creative you can kind of ignore it and build somewhere else, or even you can blow it up with TNT. It's a lot easier and less scary to try new things in a creative world, so if you want to get better at building but you don't have a creative testing world, then I would highly recommend it. In general though, I think anyone can become a good builder. Just keep in mind that Minecraft building is an art form. Just like drawing and painting, it takes a lot of time and practice to get good, and building styles and techniques are always evolving. So as a Minecraft builder, you're always going to get better over time. It took me a full 5 years to get to this point, and I'll be honest, there's still a lot of builds that I make that I don't like that much, but that's fine because I know that when I don't like something about a build, I keep that in mind for my next build, and by making mistakes, I learn new things to do and not do. If I can be honest with you, you're never going to be a perfect builder. Everyone has their own style of build they like, so maybe for you, your builds might look awesome, but maybe for someone else, it's terrible. I think if I learned anything over my 5 years of building in this game, it's that you can practice as much as you want, you can study other builds for hours, but in the end, Minecraft is a video game, and video games are meant to be fun. I used to take Minecraft building so seriously that I didn't really enjoy building anymore, but it's when I really started having fun with my builds, trying different things just because I wanted to. Instead of overthinking everything, I started to tell myself, let's do this because it sounds fun. That's when I first of all started enjoying Minecraft building a lot more, but more importantly, that's when my builds started getting a lot better. I didn't make sure it was perfect. I actually did kind of the opposite. I wanted my builds to be different, kind of weird even. I started taking that approach about 1 year ago now, and I saw that I improved a lot more in that year than the 4 before that. Now don't get me wrong, of course there's a lot of things that I tried that didn't work at all. My builds are still not perfect, and they honestly will never be, and I'm definitely not the best builder out there, but I'm always building and practicing, and well, so far it's been working. So if I can leave you with one last trick, it would be to just have fun. Trust me, if you just start having fun with your builds, you're going to enjoy them a lot more. But with that, thank you very much for watching. Consider subscribing and leaving a like on the video, and with that, as always, have a good rest of your day.